A new report from a United Nations commission has just dropped, and it's sending massive shockwaves across the international community. It levels one of the most serious accusations you can make, but the pushback has been just as fierce. So today, we're going to break down this war of words, looking at the claims, the denials, and the hard facts on the ground. So here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at the UN's explosive claim itself. Then, we'll dig into the evidence they're presenting to make their case for genocide. After that, we have to hear Israel's side, their forceful rejection of it all. We'll ground these accusations in the real human cost of the conflict. And then finally, we'll ask the big question: why does this particular report matter so much right now? All right, let's get right into it. At the very heart of this firestorm is a new report from a special UN Commission of Inquiry. And what it says about Israel's actions in Gaza is about as serious as it gets. But hang on, before we go any further, we have to ask this question. The word genocide, it gets thrown around a lot, but it has a very, very specific legal definition. It's not just about how many people have died. To prove it, you have to show specific acts and, this is the really critical part, the intent to destroy a group. Okay, so with that legal definition in mind, let's actually look at the case the UN Commission is building. What exactly are they claiming, and what evidence are they pointing to that would support such an extreme charge? Now, the first thing you've got to notice is the very precise legal language here. The report doesn't say guilty. It's not a court, after all. Instead, it says there are reasonable grounds to conclude. That's a legal threshold, and it basically means there's enough evidence to warrant a serious criminal investigation into the crime of genocide. So what are these acts they're talking about? Well, the Commission says it found evidence for 4 of the 5 acts that legally define genocide. And you can see it's not just about killing. It's also about causing serious harm, creating conditions designed to destroy the group, like starvation, or even preventing births. It's about a deliberate effort to wipe out the Palestinian group in Gaza, in whole or in part. But remember what we said about intent? That's the key. The acts alone are not enough. And this is where it gets really contentious. The UN Commission says it found evidence of that intent in public statements made by some Israeli leaders, which they argue, when you look at them alongside the actual military operations, paint a picture of genocidal intent. Okay, but that is just one side of this incredibly charged story. Israel's response was immediate, and it was a complete and total rejection of the report's findings, offering a totally different version of events. And you really can't overstate how far apart these two positions are. On one hand, you have the UN Commission saying there are reasonable grounds. On the other, Israel's foreign ministry calls the entire report distorted and false, and goes even further, accusing the panel of just repeating Hamas propaganda. And it doesn't stop there. Israel actually flips this accusation completely on its head. Their official stance is that it was Hamas, not the IDF, that committed acts of genocide on October 7th. The very attack that started this whole war. To really get a handle on the weight of these claims from both sides, let's just step back for a second and look at the raw human numbers behind this conflict, based on the source material. The whole thing kicked off on October 7th, 2023. A Hamas-led attack on Israel killed 1,200 people. And during that same attack, 251 people were taken hostage and dragged back into Gaza. In the massive Israeli military campaign that followed, the death toll in Gaza, according to the Hamas-run health ministry, has now climbed past 64,905. And beyond the sheer number of casualties, there's this catastrophic humanitarian crisis. UN-backed food security experts have officially declared a state of famine in Gaza City. This is a critical detail because it links directly back to that specific allegation from the Commission, the one about deliberately inflicting conditions calculated to destroy the group. You know, we see reports and opinions about this conflict all the time. So what makes this one so different? Why is it grabbing all the headlines? Well, the answer really comes down to who wrote it and the official backing they have. The commission is led by a woman named Navi Pillay, and her background here is, well, it's incredibly significant. She's the former UN human rights chief, but even more critically, she was the president of the international tribunal that prosecuted the Rwandan genocide. She has deep, first-hand experience with the legal reality of these exact crimes. And this isn't just some independent group publishing their opinion. This commission was officially set up by the UN Human Rights Council. Its specific job was to investigate potential violations of international law by all sides. This gives their findings a certain official weight inside the UN system, even if it's not legally binding. And all of this brings us to our final question. It is so important to remember that a report like this is an investigation, not a verdict from a court. It's simply laying out what it says is the evidence. So the real question it leaves hanging over everyone is, what happens now? What are the political, the diplomatic, and the legal fallout when a UN body makes a claim this huge and it's rejected this fiercely?